Sandeep, please start the session.
Thank you, Reshma. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining in from across the country. Reshma, can you very quickly tell us the count of the number of people who've joined this webinar? I guess if I can look at the numbers, we've already got about 300 plus participants, and the number is building up. So thank you so much. While the participants continue to join, I want to get started so that I'm able to make the most of the next 60 minutes I have with you. It is only in order that I start by thanking our partner, People Matters. People Matters and People Strong, we sound like twins, and sure we are, because we just collaborate so much. So thank you so much, People Matters, for your association and for pulling this wonderful webinar together, which I hope is very, very useful for everyone who's joining in from different parts of the country. What we're experiencing is truly unprecedented and disconcerting. And I do want to start that I hope and pray that everyone on this call and your loved ones stay healthy and positive in this pandemic. There is lots on our mind, and while no one really has all the answers, we through this masterclass series will help you decode the impact of the current COVID pandemic on your business, people, customers, and investors. Through a set of candid conversations with business leaders across the sector, we hope to offer you advice and tools to navigate these extremely uncertain times. My name is Sandeep Chaudhary, and I work at People Strong, and I'm only delighted to play your host for today. The inaugural masterclass was conducted by my colleague Pankaj Bansal, and we had Dr. Santosh Mishra from Aditya Birla Group as our first guest. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have two special guests from the other side of the country. We have Harika Shah, founder and CEO of Kinara Capital. The easiest way I can describe what Kinara Capital does is that it is the country's fastest growing fintech company. They are at the forefront of driving financial inclusion at the grassroots level by giving out small ticket loans ranging from 2 lakh to 25 lakh to micro and small business entrepreneurs. Harika is joining us from Bangalore. Welcome, Harika.
Thank you very much for having me, Sandeep.
My pleasure. Our second guest is a well-known HR leader and a very colorful man, Jai Krishnan, and he goes by the name JK. He's the President HR, Corporate Com, and New Business Development at Amara Raja. Amara Raja needs no introduction. It's one of the most well-respected conglomerates in the country that operates across 16 businesses. And we for sure, as consumers, love their trusted brand Amaron from the automotive batteries. JK is joining us from Hyderabad.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, JK. Thank you so much for taking the time. Harika and JK, welcome again, and thank you so much for joining in. It is indeed a pleasure to have two friends on this chat. I know it would have been nothing less than to move a mountain if it was for the three of us to physically come together and enjoy a nice cup of coffee. So clearly some benefits of the digital world.
Definitely.
So, as I was just looking at the context, I couldn't really help myself go just about a month back. And it all started with a dummy run for all of us with the Janta curfew that was called by the Prime Minister on the 22nd of March, if I'm not wrong. And that was only the start of the first lockdown that began on the 25th of March. And then the second wave that we are hoping will end next week, or at least formally we know is going to end next week. While there is no official announcement as yet, There are speculations that it will extend well into the third week of May. Uh, and in this time, we've seen our clients, many friends, and many businesses first urgently get down to responding to the entire situation of lockdown. A large part of the focus at that point in time was to ensure the well-being of their employees and how will they continue to serve their clients when they're not going to be having access to the office premises. So there was an immediate action put into place around BCP and work from home and so on and so forth. The second stage, as I see, was settling in with work from home and immediately working in managing the crisis. Cash, as we know, is the blood flow for any business, and everybody's first worry was about the liquidity. Whether a business had 1 month of cash reserve or 6 months, the impact and reaction was almost the same. This is when the immediate focus pivoted to cash preservation by organizations, and they started looking at aspects around people, cost and structure, SG&A expenses, and literally everything that could be put into that discretionary budget, because the focus was entirely how do we survive through this pandemic, whether it was to last with us for a couple of months or maybe even around 6 to 7 months or something like that. To now where we are a little bit more settled, and we're trying to define the new normal for our businesses and personally what it means for us as individuals, and how will it be the post the lockdown is removed. And we do imagine that it is going to remain a bit of a semi-state before we essentially come down to a full normal world, if at all we'll come back to that world ever again. So really, without much ado, Harika, I want to jump straight into, uh, you know, bringing your perspective to the audience. It was in early part of February or the middle of February. I don't really remember the exact date when you and I met in your office.
Right.
We had no conversation on coronavirus disease. We thought it's not going to touch us at all. In
Right.
fact, there was no official name called COVID-19 to the coronavirus disease.
True.
And a lot has happened since then.
A lot.
What has it been for you, and how are you responding to the situation that you find yourself in, both individually as and also as a business leader?
Yes. Well, a lot has indeed happened since then, and it seems to be fluid and evolving every day. So just to contextualize this, at Canara Capital, we have 110 branches across 6 states with nearly 1,300 employees. And about 200 of them are here in our head office in Bangalore, but the rest are distributed across these 110 locations. So we now, we never knew about a virus ever coming, not forget February ever before, but our planning around how we use tech has been so integral to our organization design that from day one, I mean, everything is on the cloud, everybody has mobile devices, laptops. And so when the lockdown conversation started, we did a quick trial run even before the Janta curfew, and we decided to go work from home the day before the Janta curfew and stay in work from home mode. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't, there wasn't we did a little bit of the scramble, we did there was a lot of chaos. And then quickly, as a leader, what you have to do is keep the routine, right? So we kept the routine of doing the morning huddles. Every team had a morning huddle, and they kept the routine of doing it. The difference is instead of meeting in the hub office or in the head office, you are now doing this virtually. And our teams, adapted very, very quickly, that allowed for us to build confidence that we could continue down this path and do a lot more. The challenge, though, was on our customer front, right? Our customers are, as you mentioned, small businesses. Their turnover is maybe 4 or 5 lakh. They're distributed in these locations. And while they are also getting online with tech, we haven't really engaged with them, purely on a tech platform. So one of our differentiators as a lender in this market is while we use a lot of financial technology for lending decisions and operational efficiency, we still value the personalized service that our field teams provide to the customer, and our customers value that. And
Right.
that's the one part of the equation that had to change quite quickly. So we had to move that conversation from in-person conversations, because as you mentioned, the safety of our employees is paramount. And we had to move that to being able to actually call them more often. One thing that has helped us as a country is everybody is now familiar with WhatsApp and WhatsApp video. So we started doing WhatsApp video calls to our customer, and that brought the level of personalization, maybe not to the absolute perfection as you would want, face to face, but close enough in the environment we were in, and that really has helped us. So many things that I thought would have stopped did not stop. I mean, we started our annual performance review process on the People Strong product as our first go live on the product, and we went through the entire process without any interruption. It was just normal. We just did it through Google Hangout. So I do think that being mentally ready and having the tech ready, and then just moving the people along has helped us to start basically moving to a more productive workforce, even in this changing environment.
Yeah. And for your business, if COVID was not enough, the moratorium from the central bank just made it worse.
It has made it better for our customers, maybe made it worse for us.
Yeah.
The customers definitely need it, right? Our customers have not been able to open their manufacturing facilities, their small businesses, their retail store points. They have no source of income, so they need the moratorium more than ever in this environment. So I'm glad that has happened, and I'm glad that we have taken the step, and our board has been very supportive to approve us to move forward and provide that moratorium to our customers, because it was an option that RBI gave to the lenders to provide or not to provide. The downside of that option is that RBI wasn't very clear, and there has been a lot of different things that has continued to lead to confusion, and we have not been able to get the same moratorium from our lenders to us. So we are kind of sandwiched between servicing our customer needs and not being able to get that. So yes, it has been an incredibly challenging few weeks.
Yeah. No, thank you. And JK, I'll very quickly just turn to you now. When I saw your picture on this webinar, Hardika and I look like we're working from home, but I guess your home office is even more professionally done than your original office. That's just just an observation. So it seems like you were always ready to work from home.
Not really, Sandeep. I mean, it's a small, if you would not believe it, it's a small foyer which is converted to a study room, which I normally sit here. I mean, I never imagined that I have to sit like this and do a webinar over from this place ever. And that was continuous days of working in this small special room of mine. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Help me understand. I've always wondered. I know that the work from home is relatively easier for the knowledge workers. Everybody's just on a computer, even if they were in their office locations. What is work from home for a manufacturing industrial company like yours, when there is nothing being produced, the factories are shut, there is little sales, very little consumption to talk about. So what's work from home in that sense?
A conscious silence, as you would think of, is what comes to me as the reaction. So Sandeep, to tell you, yes, it's indeed a tough aspect for a brick and mortar manufacturing core company to imagine even a work from home. But I would say I think the entire leadership was pretty collaborative in creating a feeling of collaboration across the group. And you would know that we have close to, out of 16,000 people that we have, close to 12,000 are blue collar. They are from the manufacturing plants. We have a lot of our field sales force, and especially the people who are on service calls, our people who are servicing the telecom towers. I mean, they had to continue to be on the job And it's only because of that you and me are able to talk like this on webinars, or for that matter, do collaboration through all our teams. So it was indeed a big, tough start. Fortunately, like Hartika said, somewhere we felt that we should possibly do a pilot work from home just before all this started. That was a big blessing. So what we did is we said the next day, the day that we discussed in the leadership team, we said, why not the next day we look at a work from home for all people in the offices. And we did a pilot, and the fact remains that it was not 100% work from home. We were only prepared maybe for a 30-40%, and that's what really happened. And then we said, after we came back, that was on a Thursday, we came back on a Friday and said, possibly we should try this the following Tuesday, but then we didn't have an opportunity to do a pilot anymore. It was real time then. And that's what it all evolved to. So to ask or to sort of ask ourselves, how are we feeling it now? I think we are sort of getting used to it. It's a tough situation, but we got to deal with it, and we are dealing with it pretty good. In terms of, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
In terms of manufacturing situation, I should also tell you that to bring our all plans to a phased shutdown, that was not that easy. So we had to go through that process. We had permissions from the state government to go through that process. So we had essential services people working. We then had some of the essential supplies to be made. Most people know us for being battery manufacturers, but the fact is we also are in the food business. So we had the food business factory going on the tomato processing. We were doing it for the benefit of farmers. We know we were burning cash, but the important aspect was to help the farmers. Otherwise, their products would have got stuck. So we did that. We also got, sort of cries and requests from our telecom customers where they said they have to get batteries, and therefore we again took permissions and then did some manufacturing of telecom batteries. And awesome people that we have, and you know about Amar Raja, that we believe strongly in this non-migratory employment. So we have people from very nearby places and nearby districts, and they were more than happy to come and help. And more importantly for that situation was for us to get immediately into a war footing and ensure that the health and safety was taken care of very well. And that is something that we did very, very well. And we are continuing to do that. Yes, Abhi.
So as a manufacturing organization, what was the prep required as you got ready to step into the lockdown? A large part of technology and everything else that you're talking about in terms of work from home is a lot more relevant for the corporate employees. But a vast majority of your people and your talent is the one that might just have a phone as a device.
Very true, very true. That's very true. So as far as the white collar, I would say it was relatively easy. We could just ensure laptops were there. We could ensure shifting of desktops, providing Wi-Fi on the desktop, so on and so forth. But the largest challenge was how do we stay connected with our large workforce in the plants? While they are nearby, we wanted to know that they were safe, they were comfortable. Because many people moved away, and some of them even moved to their villages, their villages where their parents were. And there were a host of people who were in our working men's hostel. We said, don't worry, we will take care, and we continue to take care of them very comfortably. We have our townships where families are staying. We have working women's hostel where there are women employees staying. Beyond this, large sections of employees who have gone to their homes. So fortunately, we had this technology very handy, which was very much, until that point, pre-COVID, we had only facilitated it for the white collar. So we said, why not we facilitate this for the entire workforce, for including blue collar. So from a 3,000 and odd white collar, we moved it to the entire 16,000 people. And we facilitated the geo-tagging in the mobile technology for them in our people portal technology, which is called the V at AR, V at Amar Raja. So we
Right.
told all people, we would like to know where you are, and we would like to stay connected. And through the geotagging process, where people were punching in from their home, we knew that they were at their homes, they were safe. And today, you wouldn't believe it has moved up to close to 95% of people. We know where they are. The 5% are people who do not possibly have a smartphone at that blue collar level, which again we are keeping in touch through our managers. And that was a big thing that we did. And of course, not just getting to know, staying connected, messaging with them, collaborating with them, letting them know what is really happening, getting ready, making them feel engaged, and also making them get ready to bounce back.
Right, right. No, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I do remember that, uh, the number of requests that we were getting from you were all at that point in time just directed towards how can we monitor the safety and any other health requirements that our employees would essentially need. And that was just not
Precisely.
restricted to the white collars.
Yeah.
Harika, for your business, you've seen dramatic shifts. You've seen from being a positive asset liability business to almost move to the wrong end of the spectrum. You've got about 1,100 loan officers, and the entire business model is about the last mile distributed service that you essentially provide to your customers who also don't have the digital dexterity that many of us would essentially have in the knowledge sector or working in the corporate offices and so on and so forth. Many of your customers, because of the scale and size of the businesses that they're essentially managing, like if they bought a machine and that's not operational because of lockdown, they've had to temporarily shut down their lights. Uh, in in a situation like this, how do you, as a business leader, what's your message to those 1,100 loan officers? What's the best way for them to create some hope and connectivity, uh, and be there whenever they find that there is an opportunity to serve a need of a client or a customer that could be quite extraordinary from the earlier times, which were pretty normal for you and I to live in?
Yeah, so one thing that happens very quickly, and you asked about as a business leader, the first thing you have to do is drop the business part of the leadership and really focus on what is the need of the hour, which is the care and support for everybody, the entire, sort of the community and all of us participants in that community, right? So even with our customers, we've ensured our teams are equipped to essentially just call and check in. To be there if the customer needs something, and it could be something personal, like I'm really, I've got a situation, can you help me out? So just to offer that, right? Offer that at the humanity level, not at the business level, because these are uncertain and exceptional times, and this is not the time for us to push the business agenda of, have we disbursed and have we collected and this customer is behind on payments. It all doesn't matter right now, right? It will matter later, and we'll come back to later when the time is right. So our focus has shifted, and our ability to move our workforce engine to that focus has been important, and to our own focus, right? Even in our call centers all work from home. We have a fully fledged call center that we run from home, and we did a customer sentiment survey. We called 15,000 customers just to check in and ask, how are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are they worried about coming out of lockdown? What are they, are they going to be able to get their employees back when the lockdown is over? Just in this conversation, we were hearing about a lot of the employees have gone to the villages. Now, even if they want to come back, there are restrictions to coming back. So business might want to reopen post lockdown, but may not be able to right away if the employees don't have a way to come back, and assuming they want to come back, right? So these are complex challenges. So in terms of, I come back to the same point, right, which is about, you said about settling into this. Settling into this for us has meant that we accept what is there, we accept the guidance that is being given by our leaders, our national leaders in terms of lockdown and hot zones and precautions, and that we all need to follow. And I think as a country, we're doing a great job to stem this as best as we can, given the conditions we have. And so now, as we come out of lockdown, the next thing we need to shift our focus to is the economic revival. And that's where the next challenge is. But the first challenge has been really about demonstrating that we are part of an interconnected community. We are all in the same ocean. We might be different ships and boats, but we are in the same ocean right now. And how do we stay in this ocean and keep an eye on each other so that we can get through the night? And then we'll figure out what happens next from here.
Yeah, I was reading an interesting article, and I'm just going to take the first line to get your views and which side of the equation are you tending towards. They said a poor country or a developing nation like India is doing everything to save lives, and we think we're doing a great job of what we're supposed to do as a country. And then you've got the more rich nations, the developed nations, which are actually talking about livelihood. They're talking about the economy ticking in, and they're less concerned about lives. It is a bit of an oxymoronish kind of a thing than what we would have actually thought would be India's reaction and what would be the developed world's reaction, where we thought that India doesn't value lives as much as the Western world does. Where are you between this life and livelihood debate?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it is a debate is disappointing, isn't it? But since it is a debate, I do think that there has to be a balancing act. There has to be a balancing act between both those elements. And I think that right now we are seeing the government try to find that balancing act, right? We had the lockdown was extended. There is already stimulus packages being discussed. There is conversations happening about how to revive the economy. So both of these things are going to be essential for us to move forward. I don't think that it is ever a fair comparison for us and any other nation. I think we all have our unique situations and our unique challenges. And so, others are doing what they think is right for their countries. We need to do what is right for ours.
Yeah, and the reason why it's very aptly put to you is because you are in that micro and small enterprise space where the cash reserves that those kind of businesses have is anywhere between 15 to 30 days. So if they're sitting with just too much of idle inventory of either capital expenditure, which has already been put in, or literally no sales or production or consumption, it's literally impossible for them to see a revival, even when there is an opportunity for them to revive.
Yes, I mean, it is going to be challenging, no doubt. And it's going to be challenging across the spectrum, but most definitely for the small business owner, because they are the most at the tail end of a supply chain. And like you said, with the smallest reserves pushing the economic engine of the country. So there might, in our own customer sentiment survey, for example, most of them are expecting that business volumes will come down. However, what is also interesting is that they are not pessimistic about the future. They think this will pass, that if it's a 3-4 month challenge, and that if they can survive this 3-4 month challenge, they can get through. But what they need is two things. They need the stimulus package. They need the government to step up. They need the Fin Ministry to come to the fore. And similarly for us, right, we would love to lend to them right now. Now is the time more than ever that we want to get in front of this, that we want to support them. They will need small loan to even get the machine back operational, or restock, or just even get the place sanitized and ready for operations, right? So there's a lot of things even we can do to lend. However, we are also constricted now in our cash flows. And so we need that stimulus package from the government. We need the right policy from the RBI to support the, the systemically important NBFCs like us that have built a book of 900 crores. So we are not insignificant here. We are doing the last mile distribution work that is required for the nation. Both of these parts have to come together. And then ultimately, we have to believe in the resilience of the small business owner, because even in the last 7-8 years that I've been running Kinara Capital, right, we saw DMON, we saw GST, and we saw our own financial systems services ecosystem crisis the last 18 months, and yet the small business owner continues to move forward. So I'm putting my bet on the resilience of the small business owner. If we can get these two pieces right on the regulatory side and the fiscal monetary policy side, I think we can really move the ball.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for that. And I sometimes believe there is human resilience, and then there is just the Indian resilience. And I do believe that the Indian resilience is quite extraordinary in many ways. Jake, coming to you, productivity in the manufacturing space has always had a very linear, straight line definition to it. I don't even know whether productivity is going to be the right conversation in today's context, but how are you on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, measuring success at Amara Raja? How does the executive team of your organization comes together and say, okay, you know what, the past week that just went by was a good week. So what's that definition of a good week in this situation for you?
Yeah, Sandeep, I don't think we are necessarily discussing or taking a review process of how the week has been. But for sure, I think all of us are in our own virtual collaboration meets are definitely feeling that we are more creative and, if at all, equivalently productive in comparison to the pre-COVID times. I would say the creativity of people across, I'm not saying only about leadership, and leadership exists across. So across levels, we get this feeling that the creativity has gone up. The kind of ideas, the inputs and thoughts that come up to combat with the situation is really, really, really inspiring. One. Two, in terms of productivity, it is fair to assume that we cannot achieve the same things at this crisis situation. So the fact is, we have to calibrate our expectations. So if you ask me from a calibrated expectation perspective, we are definitely contented of what we are doing. And that's what is fully possible. And you see the paradox. The paradox to me is you have increased creativity, productivity is in a question mark, and the business productivity is definitely not there. So that's the paradox. So personal productivity of people, if you ask me, is definitely up. So as an organization, I think we are showing that capability that we will go through this transient times, and we can, and that's proven. I like that earlier question that you asked to Hardik, and Hardik, I should really appreciate the way that you responded. I just taking a little input from what you said and want to respond to that also, Sandeep. Where is the question of livelihood without lives? Okay. I think as leaders, business leaders, we need to know how to balance between both people and business. And I think that's the business of a leader. So if we are not knowing to do that balancing act, I think we are failing in leadership. So I think Amara Raja also has been going through that conscious understanding of what's the purpose of we being in business and what are our values and living up to that. So that was extremely critical. And for sure, that for all you know, we need to be prepared even for the worst to come. I mean, we can say we are in a recovery path in one aspect, but we don't know. So we could be caught unaware again going forward. So the need is again to create that appreciation in your business folks, in your people, and make them appreciate. And for all you know, they will be the ones who will give you the confidence to run this business. So To me, I'm just responding to the earlier point of people and business balance is important. And I hope, Sandeep, I responded to your question on productivity as well.
No, you did. Thank you so much. I just want to talk to the audience. We know that you're beaming with questions. There's some questions that Reshma from People Matters is already sending my way. I'm not taking them because I know that I'm getting them covered in the logical flow of this conversation. But at some stage, I will just start taking questions, not from the list that I've drawn, but also from the list that we're essentially getting from the audience. But much of that, I hope, is already getting addressed through the way the conversation is moving right now. So, I love Bill Gates because I think if it's not for the economist, if it's not for any of the pundits, he certainly had a very interesting TED talk about 3 to 4 years back where he said the biggest disruption that we will see will be through a pandemic and a health crisis like the one that we are witnessing today. And I think that just won him a lot more credibility than what he already had. And very recently, he just spoke about how a semi-normal state might actually be around the corner. And he talks about it's going to be impossible to overstate the pain that will lie years ahead for us, our people, our businesses, and how they will, in what state of health will they be to make the most whenever we see that V-shaped recovery or W-shaped recovery that people have been talking about. But if I was to visualize a semi-normal state, imagine a restaurant where people will be sitting on uh, one table, uh, alternatively on tables, right? So they will leave one table between themselves. Look at airplanes where the middle seat will be empty. JK, in that context, in a semi-normal state, and I'm using this term for the simple reason that after the lockdown, it's not that the lockdown gets over on a particular day and the next day it's going to be all normal. How are you preparing for things at an operational level to begin with? Because a lot of labor has already moved to their native places. How do you bring them back? In what batches do you bring them back? How do you continue to maintain social distancing at the shop floor level and so on and so forth? Like, what's that kind of planning which is going on in your boardroom?
Thank you, Sandeep. A lot of preparation. I would say the green room preparations to some extent about as we resume operations, hopefully on May 4th to a limited extent. It's not definitely going to be the old normal, and the old normal will definitely take its time and toll. So a lot of preparations are going on. We have close to some 5 to 6 task forces. One of the task forces is the Health, Safety and People Task Force, which is purely working on the standard operating procedures, our exit strategy, what should we do, how should we receive people. A lot of work going around. A lot of infrastructure work is already happening with due permissions from the government to ensure that we keep our people healthy and safe. As we speak to you, we are already ready with an Amara Raja People Safety Management System, which is a web app which we have developed with somebody from the US. And this is almost like a self-screening tool. So anybody who gets notified for work, at least an hour before work, will have to go through the self-screening exactly this tool, and then come over. If he is going to get into a company transport facility, there will be a thermal scanning that will happen at the before entry of the transport facility. If you're coming on your own, obviously when you come at the entry itself, there are a lot of processes. And this app, this web app that we have created can even be used by family members of our employees purely for a self-screening purpose. Then as you get in, the social distancing norms of 6 feet is what we are aiming at, and not the 3 feet old one. So at a 6 feet. So to that extent, we are we have even looked at some of the infrastructure across our plant operations and across all some 14 plants that we have across different businesses. In fact, food business has already started working in that fashion. For our warehouses, our branch offices, for our project sites, for the field service personnel, for our franchisees, we have created the SOP document, which is the standard operating processes, and educating them. As I speak to you, I mean, today 7 o'clock, we are addressing a large section of our field people, letting them know and educating and training them on these things. So we are absolutely prepared. Touch wood, all goes well. And needless to say about the kind of communication that we are doing and also getting it acknowledged from our people. Fortunately for us, Sandeep, the question that you asked about people getting back to work, like I said earlier, 95% of the people are very much in touch. We know that they are responding. We are in fact creating some polls. They are responding to that. So we know that they are very much there. There are a lot of people who are not just we getting in touch. They are in touch with us, telling our managers, please let us know when we have to, and we will. So that is one thing. The constant communication by leadership, be it by our chairman, the vice chairman, the respective CEOs, MDs, the group function heads, leaders across are in constant communication, not just by written, but even through videos. Our leaders even taught people through videos on how to stitch a mask. So a lot of things are happening, and that preparedness is very much on the way.
This was all at the operational level, and obviously manufacturing industry is known for its very, very meticulous SOPs, right? So I always think that the way the manufacturing setups actually work is nothing less than the paramilitary or the armed forces in this country sometimes. But now, if I was to just elevate the conversation a little to the strategic level and say, post-lockdown, what are the things that you really want to see change in the way you've operated in the pre-COVID era? What are some of those elements that you are going to question, whether it is about whether you will get down to relooking at your people cost and structure? Is that the most useful element? Is that even in the top 3 priority list of a manufacturing organization? And you don't have to speak for Amara Raja. You can broadly talk about what would be your guidance for the large manufacturing organizations that we might have attending this webinar.
Sure. I mean, Sandeep, that's a very pertinent question. Be it for Amar Raja, small, medium, large. Let me go back to what I said earlier, balancing between people and business. When you say you're balancing, it doesn't mean one-sided, right? So this, for the immediate future, at least for the next 1 or 2 months, the focus is to see that you get back to some amount of serving the top line of your business. As things evolve, I think as business leaders, we will have to definitely re-examine the way we are designed, the way we are as an organization, how are we structured and designed? Is there scope for, reviving our project? We have a project which is a very favorite project even during pre-COVID, which we believe that project will be still a favorite post-COVID, which is the project HOPE. HOPE is about headcount optimization and productivity enhancement. So the subject of productivity will be much more important than before. So that need not necessarily be laying off people, but it could be redeploying. It could be the way that we have been working. We could restructure some of our roles. And as I speak to you, I'm reminded of somebody who spoke to me about saying that from a typical brick and mortar organization, who spoke to me about looking at some of their roles and converting it to gig. And I think even for manufacturing organizations, that's a great example. Not necessarily on the production process, but other allied processes which are supporting the production. So there is a lot of opportunity that way. So that will definitely be a requirement, at least in the next maybe 3 to 6 months. But the first 2 to 3 months would be predominantly the focus on putting your feet down in this abnormal times. So that will be an agenda that leaders will have to be looking at.
Harika, how would you respond to that for your business post lockdown? What are some of the operational and strategic priorities that will immediately come up on your list? And there is already prep work which is going on to make sure that one, we are not wasting this crisis, and second is we are on the start line even healthier than we were pre-COVID.
Yeah. First of all, JK, I need that app you're talking about. That sounds, like something every one of us could use.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Um, taking from where JK is leading this conversation, I think the strategic priorities are going to shift in our lending business from figuring out how do you manage the health and safety of both your customers and your employees without losing that personalized touch, right? So one thing we are moving is how do we move our tech? How do we move our tech? We have today our process requires us to go meet a customer 70 times. Well, that may not be possible, and that might be something we need to relook at. So we are working on sort of two elements of this: going digital, where we can reduce the contact without losing the contact. So maybe that is 3 times and not 7 or 8 times. And then the second thing is how do we elevate the customer as well? The customer needs to also go digital. Thankfully, already so many different initiatives are have been promoted. Even during the COVID time, the whole health app, the Arogya Setu app, is also pushing this the digital touch point with everyone, and so our customers are already there. We need to push them to the next level, and instead of using it for information, how do they engage with it? So our priorities are shifting largely to move them, in both of these, us internally to move into a more digital approach than we do today, and our customers to move into a more digital approach than they are where they are today. Now, this can't happen overnight. It's not as if we come out of lockdown and then everybody is going to go, into the new world order. So this has to be a staged event. It has to be, it's not just building the tech, right? This is a behavioral change challenge, and you guys are the expert on behavioral change, right? So this is going to take some amount of effort for all sides to get there. But that's our fundamental one side of the priority. And the second thing, which is really interesting, and allows this, in the times we are, it is in some ways it feels chaotic. In other ways, there is a calm that is setting in that's allowing us to free our mind to rethink all of our business processes with a cleaner point of view, and rethink and say, are these relevant? Are these working? What would we change? Whether it's in our call center, whether it's in our business operations, whether it's in our credit, because our entire credit underwriting model needs to be, the old model has to go out the window, and we need to we need to redefine a whole new model, right? So we're taking this opportunity to plan for sort of a rebirth of the business processes within the organization, because this new normal that we talk about is here to stay. And if we can get ahead of it and think of it as an opportunity to look inwards a little bit, and hence move forward from there, it could serve us in the long run.
Yeah, and our traditional ways that we were constantly deploying to rally people, to get them to find meaning and purpose in what they were doing, working at our respective organizations, to get them inspired, uh, is all going to be obsolete, because one, social distancing will not allow us to do that. Uh, and B, even if that was not the case, many of our organizations would not be able to afford for a long time to put, like how, Hardika, you had put last year, over 900 people into one venue in Hyderabad, and then walk them through your strategic plan and get them charged in terms of what is that they really have to do to get you those 120% of the commitment on a daily basis. How effectively do you think the workplace technology, the HR technology that you're already using needs to improvise itself, and what's going to be that new definition of that HR tech that you feel is going to be very, very relevant for companies in the post-COVID era?
The one thing that I think HR tech will come in tremendously in the forefront now, or one piece of the tech that'll come in the forefront, is all around collaboration and connectivity. We always think of HR, or at least the old world view of HR tech is payroll and leave and attendance and functionality. But the people functionality now that we are going to lose will need to really be part of this, where people feel connected, right? I'll give you an example. Some of our team members, so we have potluck lunches that we do every quarter, and we do them in the hub office and we do them in the head office, and people bring the little lunch boxes and we share, right? Well, how do you do that? So some of our team members decided to do a Google Hangout potluck lunch, and then they took photos and then they shared it with everybody else, and all of a sudden you didn't lose the old but transformed it to the new way. How do you do that more integrated with the tech, or the HR tech, so that it can become a way for us to basically build on each other's strength and stay connected? Because the social distance, the physical distance is one thing, but the social distance now that is going to come, which is the disconnectedness, is what we need to address, especially in an organization like ours, where we are already distributed across 110, 120 locations, right? So that's where I would like the HR tech to support this big journey. And I know that, for example, we are ready now more than ever for the chatbot, for Ginny, and all the product dev that People Strong has done in this area, because it'll come in really handy right about now.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And JK, I would actually say from many customers, over 300 that we have the privilege to serve, Amara Raja would be at the forefront of how you use technology and how you almost push us many times to invent things for us, which obviously ends up becoming a very, very important and a great feature for many of our other 300 plus clients, whether that's around productivity through Zippy, whether that's around the entire geotagging to the geofencing and so on and so forth. Where is that you feel the post-COVID need would essentially be to explore a lot more through work tech, because a lot will be missing because of not having that physical proximity. Some of that might be relevant in manufacturing, but a very large part of that is actually going to be transpiring as reality in the services sector.
Yeah, Sandeep, I have always believed that the utilization of HR tech or the people tech in manufacturing has been very, very low. In fact, when you have people at a composite place, the way that you can play with technology and get them to higher levels of engagement and productivity is phenomenal. I think manufacturing is yet to taste that success. And that's why we believe strongly that we got to get all this into our organizations across all businesses. And we are getting to see that benefit, I'm sure, even in the post-COVID situation, as we struggle to get back to the old normal. I'm sure technology is going to be very, very important. See, for example, digital itself is going to assume much more significance than the pre-COVID era. And the people tech forms part of it. So the number of billions that are getting invested on pre-COVID area on people tech, I would only believe that it would go easily 40-50% more. That's going to happen. Like Hartika said about connect, collaboration, yes, for sure. Even in terms of productivity driving, if you can enable your operators at the shop floor to actually, rather than recording in your logbook, and he actually gets this recorded either through his mobile and not even have to use a kiosk. And even in a current COVID situation, if those can be facilitated, I think it's fantastic. And you can have your own firewalls on ensuring safety, security for the organization data. So there are phenomenal ways on which productivity can be enhanced. And I would only see that possibly services will anyway pick it up much more. Manufacturing is also a promising area to pick it up much more.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that we've seen a lot of conversation just over the last few weeks has been around, and somewhere I think it's taking the form of productivity, but really what organizations are saying is it's not about me chasing annual goals or annual targets.
Yeah.
Some of that might be very irrelevant in these very uncertain times. I really want to be able to break my annual goals into my quarterly objectives and then monthly result areas, and then get down to weekly tasks. And how can the work tech actually help me enable that? And
Right.
we've seen very consistently come from facilities management companies to services companies in the financial services, technology, and even a couple of manufacturing, because that's really what they want to be able to do when they don't have that degree of proximity and access to people like what they had before.
Very
So,
true.
Reshma, I just want to check with you. I've been picking up questions as you've been sending on the private chat window. Is there any any other question that we've got after the last one that you shared with me?
Please do feel free to pick up the questions, Sandeep.
Okay, perfect. So I guess a lot of this question from Murtuza, from Vinod, and from many others are the ones that I've essentially been picking up. Obviously, I guess, Hardika, to you, and I'm just randomly putting this question to you because I think a lot of people are kind of worried about salary cuts and so on and so forth. Almost like everyone that you would speak to is worried about his or her job, and the second is worried about his or her capacity to earn uh, in these times and going forward. Uh, how should they look at some of these elements for themselves?
Well, for any organization, right, and especially in 2020 and this era, it's all about performance and productivity, right? So your performance will drive your role, your opportunity, your career path. And at least it was definitely where we are in Kinara, we are very much for meritocracy. We have done numerous promotions even earlier than process or have you, just based on the merits of the person and the contribution of the individual. So for us, that does not change. We have taken a hard look, and I do agree with JK that there is, need for us to consider how do we manage the OPEX. And so, of course, all of our travel will, is to a standstill. So that definitely gives us the opportunity to freeze up budget there. A lot of our engagement activities, like the Hyderabad event you were mentioning, where 900 people came together, obviously cannot happen in this environment. So that frees up budget there. And so we used that and said we will not cut people's salaries for the entire year. However, we will also not provide increments, at least for now. We will reevaluate in the middle of the year, depending on where the business is, and we'll relook at what we can do, if we can do anything around the increments and the incentives then. So we've taken a balanced approach between making sure the salaries remain at the same level as last year, without necessarily, doing any layoffs, any pay cuts of any kind. And we wanted to do that because one part of it is that people are performing, and those who are performing should continue to get the opportunity, should continue to stay in the roles they are. And the other part of it is just the situation we are in. This is the time for us to come together rather than create divisions amongst ourselves.
Yeah. There's another question which is coming, which is saying, and maybe JK, you can take this. What is that one thing that will change forever in your business?
I would say attitudes and behaviors will go through a lot of change. An ability of an organization to respect that change, manage that change is very, very critical. I think one of the things that I realized, and I at least shared with a couple of my peers, was in the last few weeks, we realized that the stress levels were going up, not necessarily amongst us and leaders, but even in our teams. But it was less, I think at every higher level of leadership, you need to recognize how do you appreciate that, that situation for them, and how do you calibrate that and, help them tide over that situation. That's important, and not necessarily that you get agitated with it. expectations have to also get calibrated. So some of the important changes would be on attitudes and leader behaviors. I think leadership at every level, be it even an operator as a leader, I think he or she needs to be sensitive and be far more empathetic to the situation and people that they come across. I mean, that's an important need, and I think that humane aspect to me is very critical, not just because I'm a people's professional. I'm saying that because primarily we are all business leaders as well. So that makes the business go. So I think one big change is to be sensitive to the change of attitudes and leader behaviors and make them realize that there is something important for the context and get them to the right track. I think that is something that all of us have to be looking out for.
Yeah. Well, thank you, JK. And I do realize, looking at the clock, that we are at the top of the hour that we had for this chat. But I want to end this conversation with a rapid fire to the two of you, and hopefully end it on a slightly more reflective and a lighter note. So really, for the first one, lockdown has been a period of deep reflection for all of us at a personal level. What is that one thing that COVID has personally changed for you? What is that one personal shift that you would see in you, Hardika, from here on?
Time with family. We talk a lot about that, and I realized that how important it has become. My family is distributed. My parents actually live in the Bay Area, and so many of my cousins and extended families all over the world. And realizing that I need to stay connected more and just need that time. So that's been a big shift. And I've called up people that I haven't spoken to in 10, 15 years. And it's been tremendously fulfilling, and I do see that as a big shift that is happening to me.
JK, for you, what is that one thing that will change forever at a personal level for you?
Sandeep, thanks. I at least got a little time to think about it. I think 2-3 things come to my mind. One is a lot of self-reflection. While you are fully occupied at work, I think you are talking to yourself a little more than you should, is what I realized. One. So that has helped me to change a lot. Second, like Hartika said, I think I used to call up my parents way back in Kerala on once a week kind of basis. Now I talk to them daily. I think I get to understand them or empathize with them much more than before, which is a great asset for me, I would believe. And so also with other family members way back there, and even very close, dear and near friends, I should say. So that's something. One interesting thing I realized is I'm a good omelette maker. So the way that I used to cut onions in the past to now, I think I've improved my speed.
Since you're a HR man, that appraisal can only be done by Mrs. JK, and I will ask her when I have the opportunity to meet her. We will not let you stay with the second, with the advantage for the second question. So JK, you go on this one first.
Right.
Being at home all day and working and managing household chores, what is that one activity that you really look forward to doing, which is really your me time?
Reflection. I enjoy that.
Harvika, how about you?
My morning coffee. That's my me time.
Okay, terrific. What is the one thing you're missing while you're in this lockdown?
The whiteboard.
Okay.
As a team, you go out and you get the whiteboard and you get going, and that's been constraining.
JK, for you, what is the one thing that you miss the most in this lockdown?
I think being with teams, being with your peers, being with your team members, cracking those jokes and that humor is far less. So I really miss that. Yes.
I can't hold myself. I would have actually said a chilled beer. That's just not available where I am at this point in time.
I empathize.
And the last one, help me put these three in the priority post-COVID, which is ranging from most important to you. I think you've already responded to this in some shape or form, but again, from most important downwards: work, health, relationships. JK, why don't you go first?
Relationships.
And second?
What was the first one you said?
So we've got three items, and you got to be able to list them in the order of priority, with the first one being on the top of your priority: work, health, relationships.
Relationships, work, health. I mean, I'm saying from a natural instinct, while
Okay.
health I know has three health factors: physical, mental, and fiscal. So anyway, I think that's a tough one.
I completely agree with JK. That was how I would stack rank them too.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's been a pleasure to have all the audience around the world, and certainly a very, very big thank you to JK and Hadika for just being very candid, for being your wonderful and honest self. In fact, in many places, acknowledging the vulnerability that we have in the situation. We don't have all the answers, but most important of all, it has been very, very insightful to talk to you. It's been a wonderful learning for me, and I'm very certain for all of our audience. I think I did pick most of the questions, but in a chat like this, and when we just have an hour, I apologize that I was not able to attend to many questions that the audience would have had. So keep them coming. I'm certain we will continue to stay connected in the series of these masterclass conversations that we plan to have over the next few weeks. So thank you, Hadika, and thank you, JK, and thank you, People Matters once again.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Radhika.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. It has been a good time. Good to meet you too, JK.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See you guys soon.